गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ तत्सत्। So we were discussing the verse number 40th and then 41, and we had gone up till the verse number 42nd, and we'll move forward from there, but we'll dwell on the verse number 42 a little more. What the Acharya was trying to say in the previous 2-3 verses, Evang Deha Dvayad Anya, the Sukshma Sarira and the Sthula Sarira that we have studied about it. The Sukshma Sarira is what? The Pancha Jnanendriyas and then Karmendriyas, Pancha Pranas, Manas and Buddhi together. They are Sukshma Sarira. Why? That also we have discussed earlier. Because this Manomaya Kosha is made out of the Pancha Jnanendriyas plus Manas. Vijnanamaya Kosha is made out of Pancha Indriyas, Jnanendriyas plus Buddhi. And these Pancha Jnanendriyas are made out of what? We've discussed that they are born out of the apanchikrita tanmatras, are the panchabhutas. They are not yet panchikrita, means they are not yet visible. They are not perceptible. They are imperceptible. They are sukshma. And because whenever something is born out of something, it carries the qualities of the one out of which it's born. Therefore, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, and the Pancha Pranas, because apanchikrita, all the five, separately, these five Jnanendriyas are born. Say, for example, Bak, the Karmendriya, is born out of that Akasa Tattva. Similarly, hearing capacity, Jnanendriya, is born out of that Akasa Tattva, and we have discussed that earlier. With Buddhi, it becomes Vijnanamaya Kosha. With Manas, it becomes Manomaya Kosha. And Pancha Pranas, Prana, Pana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. And these Panchavayus, they are made out of Militebhyaha, not out of this Tanmatra separately, one after the other, but together these Panchapranas are born. Plus Manas and Buddhis, that means the Pranamaya Kosha is the mixture of Karmendriyas and Panchapranas. So the Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha together, they constitute the Sukshma Sarira. The Sthula Sarira is the Annamaya Kosha. So they are born out of the Panchikrita Pancha Mahabhuta. Therefore, so you have these five elements which help us to have this body. So, and the Anandamaya Kosha is the Karana Sarira. When he's saying Evam Deha Dvayad Anyaha Atma Purusha Ishvaraha, he is not referring to the Anandamaya Kosha. We have already also discussed what is the nature of this Anandamaya Kosha. It's considered to be Anandavuk. It experiences that great happiness. Like when the burden is removed, you feel very relaxed. The burden of Swapna and Jagrat Avastha, where we experience Sukha Dukha, either in the Sukshma Sarira or in the Sthula Sarira, they are not present during the deep sleep state. So you have an experience of happiness, and that is not experienced with the help of our Jnanendriyas or the senses, as you call them. Why? The senses are asleep. And how one experiences happiness? How do we remember when we wake up that we had a wonderful sleep? It is through Sakshi Chaitanya. Through the process in Vedanta is called Avidya Vritti. And what is the proof? He's saying, look here. Many times a person is able to say, what is the proof that there is Avidya Vritti during deep sleep? The answer very simply is like this. Sometimes you say, Aham Agyaha, I don't know about it. What do you know? You know that you do not know. As Socrates famously said in his last speech, There is some smell of Indian philosophy there. He says, I know that I do not know, and that's my wisdom. So, the Sakshi Chaitanya, how do you experience your own ajnana with the help of the Sakshi Chaitanya? And what are the other things you experience with the help of Sakshi Chaitanya? Sukha Dukhadi. You are happy, or you are sad, or you are depressed, or you are excited. These things cannot be experienced with the help of the senses we have. We have studied that the gates of these, the windows of these senses are outward. You can see the outside world with the help of your eyes, but you cannot see within. You can smell all the fragrances outside of you, you cannot smell that within, because the gates are outside, outward bound. And how do you know what's going on in you? You know it through the Sakshi Chaitanya, the witness self. But when we are talking about the Atma, the Karana Sarira, the Anandamaya Kosha, it's called Anandamaya because of Ananda Prachuryat, and Kosha because it's having this quality of Achadakatvat. It covers up the Atma. It doesn't show us the real Atma. It gives us happiness but doesn't give us moksha. Otherwise, we'll go to sleep, we'll never wake up. Or we don't have to live anymore. Evam deha dvayat anyaha. And what is that? Atma. That is the self. And what is it? Purusha Ishwaraha. That is verily Ishwara, Sarvatma, Sarvarupasya. And that is Sarvatma, Sarvatmaka, that permeates everything, and Sarva in it. That Adhisthana, that particular foundation called the Atma Tattva or consciousness appears in different ways. And we have discussed that earlier. Same water appears as Jalasaya, as Taranga, and as Pena, and Budbudu, and all that. It appears as water bubbles, it appears as foam, it appears as a wave, it appears as an ocean, but it's just water. Similarly, that pure consciousness takes different forms. The doubt that will emerge in our minds right now is whether Brahma undergoes changes. If so, why the Veda refers to Brahman or Atma Tattva is Nirvikara, Nishkala. It doesn't have any parts. Achaloyam Sanatana, it doesn't move, it's Niskriya. Why do we say all that? The answer lies in this fact that the Brahma doesn't undergo any change, but it appears as if it undergoes any changes. That is what was the verse number. Sarva Tito Aham Avyayaha. That is the experience of the Jnani, the Atma Jnani. Sarva Tito, I am beyond everything, all names and forms. And who are you? Aham Ishwaraha, Aham Avyayaha. So when the Jiva realizes that his appearance of ego, his emotions, his identification with this Sthula Sarira, with the Sukshma Sarira, or with the Anandamaya Kosha or the Karana Sarira is because of incomplete understanding, not out of perfect understanding, then that fellow move towards Atmajnana through proper analysis and meditation. That is what the Acharya said in the verse number 40th. And then, Ityatma Veda, Ityatma Deha Bhagena, Prapanchasyeva Satyata, Yathokta Tarka Sastrena, Tata King Purusarthata. In the Tarka Sastra, in the Nyaya Sastra, the Nyayayikas are considered to be the realist school of philosophy in India. They are realists. They accept the samsara, this prapancha, as real. Why so? Because according to them, the paramanus are nitya. The atoms are real and they are nitya. They are eternal. Ishvara jumbles these atoms up and he creates this samsara. Iti atma deha bhagena prapanchasya eva satyata. He's saying that with having these incomplete or stupid way or ignorant way of distinguishing the Atma in Deha, prapanchasya eva satyata. So it is with an incomplete understanding that we consider samsara to be real, because we do not realize, we do not understand that there cannot be anything outside of consciousness. You might say that there are atoms. When everything gets destroyed, pralaya satta, so everything will be in atoms. The question will arise, where will the atoms be? No, atoms will exist. How do you know atoms exist? Somebody has to see it. The moment you bring in that element that somebody has to see it, experience it, verify it, you are talking about consciousness. There cannot be any reality outside of consciousness. That is why, if you look at some of the best brains in physics, they also accept that outside of consciousness, no reality can be discussed. You look at the great insights of people like Robert Penrose and others, they slowly are hitting at this point that whatever the positivist science has given us is good enough at a particular level. You go to the ultimate level, they don't stand. They lose their relevance because you have a deeper insight to understand what is this reality. This reality is verily consciousness. The consciousness appears as if it's modified into different things. Yathokta tarka sastrena tataha king purusarthata. When on a faulty premise you have accepted the sansara is real, what is purusarthata? Will it give you real liberation out of it? If you look at the commentary, he sort of makes fun of these Nyayayikas. Atha idanim atmanah dehadvaya atiriktatva pratipadanam anarthakam iti sankate. So if you say that this reality that there is, he's raising a doubt and then refuting it. Iti purvokta prakarena varnitena atma deha vibhagena prapanchasya eva satyata yasakta tatha tarkasastrena tataha. The Nyayikas also accept Atma is different from the body. They accept it. But for them, Atma is Jada. Atma is Vibhu. Ultimately, they are having Atma Deha Veda, but accepting Sansara is real. So they get stuck. There is no liberation. Why? Vedanta says, if there is a chain with which we are all bound up and that chain is real, can we get liberation? Shastra says there is only one absolute Brahman. When we realize that only Brahman is real, everything else is not real, then everything else, whichever is either exciting us or troubling us or whatever, we do not fight with it, we bypass it. We know this is how it appears to the mind. Like you insert a stick into water, it appears as if it has bent. It's not so. The little boy asks his dad, Papa, the rod has bent or the stick has bent in water. The father says, yes, it has bent. Then he takes it out and says, no, it's straight. But it was bent when it was in water. He says, yeah, that's called refraction. He doesn't fight with the sun. He doesn't fight with the appearance as to why it has to look bent. That is the nature of it. That's how it will look. The samsara will appear as very real. That is the science of the samsara. We don't have to fight with it, but we have to overlook it because we have to look at the fundamental foundational reality called Brahman or Atman. Prapancha satyatva pratipadanat king purusharthata. With a faulty premise, even though you accept Atma is different from Sarira, you are accepting Sarira is real. The dog is different from cat. Dog exists and cat exists. Ram is different from Sham. Sham is there. But when you say the rope is different from the snake, does the snake exist? When we say the rope is different from snake, we are saying snake has fundamentally no relevance, no reality. It is a adhyasa or superimposition on the rope. The rope was looking like a snake. Only rope is real, snake is not real. Even though we say that the rope is different from snake, we are saying snake was superimposed on the rope. But for the Nyayikas, they would say, no, the snake exists. You have seen the snake. That is how you're confusing the rope as a snake. That Udarana is fine. But the inside of the Vedanta, they are not being able to capture. For them, samsara is real. He's saying, okay, if you argue like this, can you tell me what's the benefit of it? Because what is the benefit of Advaita Vedanta? Because Dvaita Dvai Bhayam Bhavati. Wherever there are two, there is a fear and anxiety, there is apprehension. Will that fellow hurt me? Raga Dvesa will always be there. Tera Mera, I and you. All these ideas will be there. But when a person in deep meditation realizes that only consciousness is real, only God is real, all others are appearances. He doesn't hate his neighbor, he doesn't hate another country, he doesn't hate another race, he doesn't hate another gender, another person, and nor does he get excited or enamored by somebody else. I need to have a relationship with that person. She's good looking, she's good, she's intelligent. He doesn't have this delusion. Why? He has realized that ultimately all of us, though we appear as different from one another, are fundamentally one tattva appearing as many. Shastra also, he listens and reads the Upanishad. It says, Dvityad Ved Bhayam Bhavati. Whenever there is a two, there is another thing. That is the source of all our agonies. So these Bhayanibriti will only come out of Advaita Jnana. Recently I had gone to this Omkareshwara where they did inauguration of a huge statue of Sankaracharya. I was happy with the title given there. It's called Ekatma Dhama. And I was very happy that they are calling it the statue of oneness. Because actually all of us are one, but appearing as opposed to each other, as different from each other. That was so therefore ultimately saying that this Nyaya Darshana, the realist school of thought, even though very sophisticated with lot of logical argumentation, ultimately not very fruitful. That's what he said in the verse number 41. In 42, what does he see? Ityatma deha bhedena dehatmatvam nivaritam idanim deha bhedasya yasatvam sputamuchyate. Now this is an introductory verse to the next few verses. Iti atma deha bhedena. When you have this understanding that atma is different from deha bhedena, deha atmatvam, dehasya atmatvam, that deha is verily self. Who is the person talking like this? This Charvaka guy. Brihaspati Sutras, that is the book's name. We do not even know who was the guy. We call it Charvaka philosophy. But who is this guy who actually talked about it? We don't know. We know about some later philosophers. We exactly do not know who was the guy who wrote this. So these Charvaka Darshana, they consider the body verily to be the soul, the self. But once, even if you take Nyaya route or Advaita route, the body cannot be the self. Why? We have got enough, arguments and philosophical references in the Vedas to justify this position that Atma is different from the body. You say, my body isn't well, and who is saying this? It cannot be the body who is saying about the self. So we have discussed all that. Dehatmatvam. So that this deha is verily atma. Dehasya atmatvam. That this deha, this body, has the qualities or the nature of the self. That is refuted. Nivaritam. Idanim deha vedasya. Now, the Atma is different from the body. Look at this. This is a very strong argument by the Nyayikas. What they say, you people are saying that the Brahman is different from Sansara or Prapancha. Don't you say this? The Vedanti says, yes, I say this. Then the Nyayikas ask him, you are saying that the Brahman is different from Prapancha or Sansara. Now, yes, I have said this. So you have accepted Sansara is something which exists. Then only can you compare Brahman or Atma with Sansara and say that the Atma is different from Sansara. Right or wrong? What will the Vedanti say? He will say, no, no, you misunderstood me. I said Brahman alone is real, Sansara is mithya. And he will give another sophisticated argument. You know what he will say? Okay, have you seen Bandhyaputra, son of a barren woman? No, you haven't. Can I say this particular pencil is not Bandhyaputra? Can you say this or not? Bandhyaputra doesn't exist. Hornet's egg. The hornet doesn't lay eggs. Is it hornet's leg? Hornet's egg? No, it's not hornet's egg. You don't have any doubt. So you are being able to distinguish something real from something unreal. You can distinguish something real and existing from something which is not prasiddha. It is never referred to, nowhere known, and yet you are being able to. If I say, okay, do you agree they are ghosts? No, I don't agree they are ghosts. Is it some spirit? No, it's a pen. Do you know where the spirits are? I don't believe in spirits. But you accept this is not spirit. This is not any kind of spirit. Those ghosts and spirits, it's not one of them. You don't accept that they exist, and yet you are being able to distinguish. Similarly, the prapancha doesn't have to be real to be compared with Brahman to establish the reality of Brahman vis-a-vis all false perceptions which make us believe that samsara exists. That is the logical argument of the Vedanti, Advaita Vedanti, the Kevala Advaita Darsana. So he's saying, Deha Vedasya, Atma is different from Deha. That much we have agreed. Now all the jivas, what will that fellow say? You see, like you have ghatakasa, patakasa, the space is there within the contours of this pencil, of the pen, of my body, my fingers. Space is having. This is angustakasa. So I take one finger and the space within it. So I give one adjective. That becomes one space. Similarly, the nose. So you have that, there is another nose space. Then ear space, then head space, body space. I can have so many spaces. These kind of bhedas can be imagined. He's saying, no, they do not exist really. These are manners of speaking. We all jivas, we exist as if we are different from each other. These are manners of speaking, fundamentally not real. That is what he's trying to drive home in the next few verses. If you look at the commentary of this verse, what is he trying to say here? Is very simple thing. He's saying, Bheda Jnanasya Abheda Jnanam Prati Karanatvat. So when you have Bheda Jnana, with that Bheda Jnana will be able to establish the Abheda Jnana of the Atma, because the Bheda is not real. It's not compared with something real. So he's saying, Karanatvat Atma Deha Vibhaga Kathanam na Anarthakam. That Atma is different from Deha. It is not pointless. Deha is appearing not fundamentally real. By talking about it, we are not making any grave mistake. That's all he's trying to say. There is no grave mistake as such. That is the small point he made. Then what is he saying? Then he's saying, Iti Purvoktena Atmadeha Vedena Atmanaha Dehat Prithak Karnena, that the Atma is different from the body. Dehasya eva praptam charvaka matena atmatvam tan nivaritam. The body is Atma, that much is refuted. Idanim. Now we'll go further. Uttara Granthena, in the next few verses, Tasya Deha Vedasya that these bodies are different from each other, that also is not fundamentally real. That will be refuted. So we'll go to the verse number 43, very interesting and a very profound verse. Verse number 43. Chaitanya Seka Rupatvad Bheda Yukto Nakarihi Chet Jivatvam Chamrisha Gyam Rajau Sarpagraho Yatha. Chaitanyasya Ekarupatvad. Consciousness is one. Chaitanyasya Ekarupatvad. With the consciousness, what is the example they gave? So you see, you have awareness of this pen, you have awareness of the computer screen, you have awareness of this particular satsang we are doing, you are awareness of the body, you are awareness of the mind. So you can say the ghata jnana, pata jnana, sarira jnana, even buddhi jnana, jnana about your buddhi, or jnana about ajnana. All this is what? Jnana only, with different kinds of adjectives. It's jnana only, sambit only, chaitanya only. Eka rupatvat bheda yukta na karhichet. It is never ever really associated with any duality or differences. Remember, this is a very slightly complicated but a very insightful point he's trying to make. Even though you are aware of many things, that means the consciousness is taking the shape of different things within you. You have the idea about your office work, then you're thinking about your daughter, then you're thinking about your wife, you're thinking about your garden, you're thinking about your pet. You have different kinds of thoughts. And they're different. So far the Nyayika is concerned, they will say there are different jnanas that are happening. The Vedanta says, look here, the all jnana, fine, I agree, jnana of X, Y, Z, whatever. Are they not one pure consciousness? They are jnana. Samanyatah jnana eva. Therefore, they are one thing only, appearing as many, like gold is taking the shape of earrings, nose pin, bracelets, armlet, etc. Verily, consciousness is one and the same thing. Bheda yukta na karhichi. It's never ever is associated with Bheda. In Vyavahara Kala, we behave, we use the language to refer to different kinds of consciousnesses, as if there is consciousness of Y and G and X and all that. But really, consciousness is only one. Then he's saying, Jivatvam cha mrisha gyam. Once you have accepted this, that you have same pure consciousness with avidya upadhi is jiva. Same consciousness with maya upadhi is Ishvara. That is what we study, we accept. That is Suddha Sattva Pradhana, and that this one is Malina Sattva Pradhana. What is it ultimately? Pure consciousness. Once we understand this, like for example, it's water. There is a water in a pot, that is pot water. Then is in a glass, it's glass water. Then it is in the river, it is river water. Then it's in the ocean, and it's ocean water. What is it? Water. All these associations that we imagine with different names and forms and then try to describe water as sea water, river water, glass water, bottled water is essentially water only. Similarly, now we'll come to Drashtantika, because you are trying to discuss this Jiva and Atma. We want moksha, we want liberation through the knowledge of the undivided absolute unity of things. The non-dual absolute, that only going to liberate us. There'll be no fear anymore once we realize that alone is real. Therefore, what he says, jivatvam cha mrisha gyam. Therefore, you should accept that your jivatva, that you are a human being, that you are old, that you are young, that you are handsome, that you are rich, that you are poor. Mrishageyam, you should realize that to be false. In what sense? Upadhi yuktatvad, because you have certain names and forms you are imposing on that pure consciousness, then you are calling yourself. You were that little boy, then you became a teenager, then you had a job, and then you had marriage, you had children, now you are father, you are grandfather. Same you. Now, what is that you? Is it Jiva? He's saying no, that also is a superimposition of this ahankara and all the old sanskaras. What is it? Pure consciousness. Is it different from the pure consciousness which constitutes the Ishvara? There also there is a upadhi. If you remove that, you are pure consciousness. Therefore, he's saying Mrishagiyam. And then what are we? Rajau sarpa graho yatha. The way you have sarpa graha means you are accepting that it is a sarpa, it is a snake. What is it really? It is a rope. But the rope appears as a snake because of dim light in that room. And you are in a state of anxiety because you have heard some stories about snakes in that area. That rope looked like a snake to you. Therefore, the Acharya is trying to drive home the point is only God is real. And that God is again with Maya Upadhi. Ultimately, Brahman is real. What are we? We are all Brahman, no different from it. Like all the snakes appearing in the rope are only rope only. They are not snakes. We are Brahman only. We appear as Jiva because of Purva Duragraha, born out of old sanskaras. We have to do a lot of sadhana and Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan, as I mentioned, do the Nishkama Karma Yoga and then Upasana and do your Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Ultimately, you will be able to figure out that you are not so stupid as you think you are. The way we think we are limited, we have a lot of weaknesses, we have a lot of anxieties. All these are assumed by us to be real. They are not fundamentally real. That is the point he's driving home. Jivatvam cha mrishagyam rajau sarpagraho yatha. So, the way we think that what is chidabhasa, that jivatva is what? Chidvat abhasate. Chidvat bhasate iti chidabhasa. There is a reflection of that pure consciousness in the antakarana vritti, in the antakarana, and we call it that I am X, Y, G with a name and form. And ultimately, when you remove that, the circle of ahankara and old sanskaras and everything, when you drop them off, what remains and what becomes amply clear to is that you are not different, we are not different from the Brahman. Very hard to realize. Because in Vyavahara Dasa, there is a person who is not giving you a favor that you wanted, or somebody is being rude to you, somebody is being respectful to you. Accordingly, you are interacting with these people and you consider this to be real. But they are not actually real. They are actually real. They are not fundamentally real. They are not really real. They are not paramarthikataya satyam. That's all he is mentioning. Then in the verse number 44, he's now going to elaborate on that point. What does he want to say? Rajvagyanaat kyananiva yadvad rajurhi sarapini bhati tadvaschitihi sakshad vishwakarina kevala. Now there is drishtanta and drashtantika, example and the actual point of discussion. What are the point of example that he is trying to discuss? The example is of the rope and snake. That confusion. Rajju agyanat. Why you confuse a rope with a snake? Maya has two aspects, avarnas and a vikshepa sakti. Avarna means hides. Achadayati. Something is there. This is actually not a pen. It appears as a pen. Then if you closely look, you know that this is a pencil. Why you consider it to be a pen? That it is a pencil, that becomes covered up because you don't closely look at it. You are looking at the similarity of this object with a pen that you have seen before. Therefore, it looks like a pen to you, is actually a pencil. Rajju Agyanat, pencil Agyanat, it is a pencil. Because of the ignorance about the existence of this pencil, Kshanena eva yadvad Rajjur hi sarapini. Kshanena eva, in 1 second, yadvad, the way, Rajjuhu hi, that very rope, this very pencil, appears as a pen. In 1 second, it appears, it becomes a pen. Does it become a pen? No, it remains a pencil. This pencil becomes a pen in 1 fraction of a second when you look at it and you presume it to be a pen. The other pet example I give, because you must have all experienced it. So you're in a conference and there's a girl who's sitting 3 rows ahead of you. She has a hairstyle of your niece or daughter. And you're very happy. So my daughter has come to attend this conference. Good girl, doing a good job. Then that girl looks back and you know, no, she's not your daughter, someone else. The hairstyle is very similar. Now, from being a very neutral observer, in fraction of a second, you suddenly were beaming with happiness that your daughter is sitting in a very good conference, listening to very, very deep, insightful talks on Vedanta. You are a very proud father. And suddenly that evaporates when that girl, because of some provocation, looks back and you know she's not your daughter, someone else's daughter. But for those 3-4 seconds, you already had a lot of thoughts that I'm going to take her out for lunch, I'm going to reward her, I'm so happy that she's here in this Vedanta lecture. 20 things you thought in fractions of a second. So that stranger girl, somebody else's daughter or sister or niece or whatever, became your niece, your daughter, your sister in 3 seconds. Or 1 second. He's saying the way the rope becomes a snake, Rajju hi sarpini, the very rope appears, it looks like a cobra, king cobra maybe. 1 second. Same way, bhati tadvat, same way, chitihi sakshad vishwakarena kevala. This that pure consciousness has taken the form of this whole sansara. But kevala chitihi, that is verily that non-dual absolute one thing called pure consciousness. The water has become an ocean, the water has become a water bubble, the water has become foam, the water has become a wave. Absolutely one thing has become many. This sansara, this prapancha, this whole duality, this diversity that we are talking about, dealing with in our lives, are ultimately one thing, provided we are able to see that. But because we cannot see this, we see the sansara. Because we are not being able to recognize the rope, we are scared of the snake. Because we cannot see God in everything, we have ahankara mamakara coming and interfering and making us sad and happy, apparently at a very surface level, till we realize that we are victims of our own useless, unwanted, irrelevant thoughts. Then we try to drop them. That's why the Buddhists say that, like you dust your house, you clean up your house, we need to clean up our minds by dropping all thoughts. They are also non-dualist. They are our cousin brothers, except that they say there is no self, and we ask them, who is saying that there is no self? You are saying you exist, self does. Well, ultimately, there is not much difference. Fundamentally, they are also arguing that what appears is real is not real. We are also saying the same thing. So there is a lot of similarity. So this is the verse number 44. And in the commentary, is there anything interesting? Very simple. Idanim purvaktam eva drishtantam vibrunan. Having said that, what does he say? Savrasyapi prapanchasya brahma rupatam. This whole sansara is ultimately Brahman appearing as sansara, the way the rope appears as a snake. Kevala iti vishasanena, by giving this kevala chitihi, that adjective kevala, only one consciousness, not too many. There is only one consciousness, and that is what he is mentioning. And then what does he say after this? He's saying that, please understand this, he's saying kevala iti visharsanina purvavastam api aparityajya avastantara prapti lakshana vivartopadanatvam eva uktam. What is vivartopadanatva? The milk becomes curd, becomes ghee. The milk actually undergoes changes. The Brahman becomes sansara. The Brahman doesn't undergo real changes. It is only apparent change, not real change. That is vivartopadanatva. Without losing your own qualities, without losing your own nature, you appear as something else. The rope doesn't lose its nature, but it appears as a snake. That is vivarta upadana of snake. Material cause. So, material cause, gold of ornaments. Gold becomes ornaments. But Brahman becomes sansara, is vivarta upadana, means it is as if the material cause, but no real metamorphosis of Brahman, no real alteration in the nature of the Brahman. Nothing can alter the Brahman, it's Nitya. Desakala Vastu Paricheda Sunyam. That is what is Brahman. So it appears as sansara. That is all trying to drive home here. It appears as something else. This is the catch, difference between the Ramanuja Mata and others and Advaita Vedanta. In Advaita Vedanta, the Brahman absolutely is nirvikara, doesn't undergo any changes. Sansara can still appear. How does it appear? Because it's magic. You have to accept this is real magic. The Jadugar absolutely has not lost anything, but he suddenly has created three people out of him. That is the show. That is how it works out. That's how you pay your hefty tickets to go and watch a magic show. But that's not real. The magician doesn't lose anything. He cuts his hand. He actually doesn't suffer anything. That's how it looks like. He remains unaffected by it. That is vivartopadanatva of the Brahman. That much I hope is clear to you. Then we will graduate to the next verse, verse number 45. Let's focus on that. What is he saying? The commentary is done for the verse number 44. 45 now we'll look at it. He will explain now how the Brahman or Ishvara or God now is the material cause of this universe. What is this vivarta upadanata? What is this word here using vivarta upadanata? Not sakhyat upadanata. It's not really the material cause. It appears as if it has created a sansara out of itself without undergoing any vikara, any modification itself. Interesting point. How does he explain it? He's looking at it like this. He's looking at it in the verse number 45. Upadanam prapanchasya brahmanonyanna vidyate tasma sarva prapanchoyam brahmi vasti na chetarat. Look at the words and break them up and understand. Then we will analyze them. Upadanam prapanchasya, the material cause of this prapancha sansara, brahmanaha anyat na vidyate. The ta becomes na, so it becomes brahmonyan na vidyate. Brahmanaha, from the Brahman, anyat, something else, na vidyate. That is what the Sankhya people or the Nyaya people will speak differently, or the Madhvacharya, the Vaishnava Matas also. The Nyaya people will say the atoms exist. God is different from the atoms. He creates the sansara using the atoms. There is something else other than God which is there. That is the material cause. Bhagavan is the nimitta karana, not abhinna nimitta upadana karana. He is the nimitta. He can't do anything, but there is material already there. The Vedanta is saying, no, you have some problem there. There is some sort of an issue which you are not being able to resolve. And what is that issue? The issue is very simple, my dear friend. The Shastra says, Neha nanasti kinchana, there is only one thing. You are now bringing in God and then some material out of which you will create the samsara. And so you're defeating the very purpose of that Vedantic insight, which is there in the Upanishads. That is the difference. In Christianity also, God makes man in his own image out of clay. So there was God and there was clay. Same as Nyayaka Darshana. God creates us out of clay. Clay existed. Advaita Vedanti will say, where did clay come from? Who created clay? And God created. God became clay. God had some other material out of which he created clay. You'll say, no, some other material. Okay, that material came out of what? The Nyaya solves that problem saying, no, atoms, ultimately. Atom came out of what? No, they don't have to come out of anything. Why? They are nitya, they are eternal. That is how they freeze that anxiety in the philosopher's mind by accepting the atoms as real and eternal. But the moment you accept atoms as real and eternal, different from the Atman or the Brahman or God, you are creating dualism. There is God and there are atoms. This is contrary to what is written in the Upanishads. How can you call it Vedanta? How can you call it non-dual philosophy, monist philosophy? You are creating God and the world. What the Westerners call monism is dualism for us. They are talking about a monist God. They're talking about one God. Doesn't mean that is Advaita. There is one God and there is samsara. There are many people and one God. This is duality. That is not Advaita Vada. That is contrary to what is the insight we have read in the Upanishads. Ekameva advitiyam. Neha nanasti kinchana. That is the ultimate vision of this whole world. It's just one thing. And that cannot be anything other than pure consciousness. The moment you talk about a God with kindness and compassion and power and everything, then there is samsara that he is having compassion to express for, to protect, and this and that. As Bhagavad Gita we studied. The Vedanta solves that by saying, do you know, my dear friend, that is sopadhika. Upadhitaya, one wave is getting crushed on another wave. They are both ultimately water only. Similarly, you have God, you have samsara, you have jiva, you have prani varga, udvida varga. I have no problem sopadhikataya with names and forms, superimpositions. I have no problem. You want to talk like this, then we don't have any problem. When you say they are real, then there is a problem. Because that will contradict the very central insight of the Vedas. That is what is the fight. And therefore he's saying, Upadanam prapanchasya brahmanaha anyat na vidyate. Don't try to imagine like a Nyayika, like a Christian, or by any other person that God created something out of something else which is different from God. Then God is defeated as Sarva Vidyaman. God is omnipresent, because you're talking about now some material out of which you'll create samsara, and the material is outside of God. And then God is not Sarva Vidyaman. God is not omnipresent. That is what will be the argument. Therefore, he says, Upadanam prapanchasya, the material cause of this whole samsara, Brahmana anyat, different from Brahman, there is nothing else. That means prapancha has emerged out of Brahman. Brahman has to undergo some changes? No. Why? It's upadana karana. The prapancha is an appearance. That is why they say Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya Jiva Brahmivana Paraha. We are Jivas, we are actually Brahman. And why are you suffering? Because of high ignorance. So these are intermediate levels of accepted realities, what we can describe as phenomenal realities, not ultimately real. Ultimate reality is without a name and a form, it's pure consciousness. That is the point Vedanta tries to, Kevala Advaita tries to hammer into our minds. Again and again and again and again, they keep harping on the same issue in several ways. And what does it say here? Upadanam prapanchasya brahmanaha anya na vidyate. It doesn't exist, my dear friend. Then what? Tasmad sarva prapancha. then you have to have some explanation. Sansar to dikta hai. How do I deal with this sansara? This sansara is Brahma eva. I see a snake. You are saying it's a rope. So what do I do with this sarp? It's a snake. Sarpa rajjureva. That snake is verily the rope. Sansara is verily Brahman. Really? No. This part is appearance, that part is reality. What is common in both? That easiness. There is a snake. Actually, there was a rope. That easiness is common to both. Therefore, he's saying, Tasma sarva prapanchoyam Brahma eva asti na cha itarat. Therefore, this whole sansara, if you have karya and karana, the karya can be dissolved in karana. The karana here is vivarta karana, not sakhyat material cause as in case of nyayayikas. That is the philosophical point being made. Once we realize, then we can go to have Atma Jnana. Otherwise, we will have Bheda Buddhi. We are worshipping Lord Ganesh. Ganesh Puja is going on. Ganesh is different from us. But if you read Ganesha Atharva Sisha, Tom Pratyaksham Brahmasi, that is what is said there. You are no different from Brahman, Ganesh, and I am no different from you either. The Ganesha Atharva Sisha is highly Vedantic. It's called Ganesha Atharva Sisha Upanishad. If you look at it, he's saying you are verily Agni, you are Vayu, you are Sakshat Brahman Eva. And realizing this, I'll get liberated. So you start puja with Ganesh Puja, but you should read the Ganesha Atharva Sisha in the end. Then we are good students of Vedanta. Because we start with puja and all celebrations. Once it's all done, you end with Jnana Kanda. Meditate on that ultimate truth, and then you feel better because that is the ultimate truth. Then he's saying that the sansara has no itarat. It's not different. So what is he trying to say? Sansara has no swatantra. It doesn't have any unique. That reality is independent and outside of consciousness. That is the foundational statement in positivist Western philosophy. Reality exists independent and outside of consciousness. I am aware of this pen exists independent of my consciousness and outside of my consciousness, then only can I see this is subject, this is object. That is positivism. Advaita Vedanta says this pen cannot exist without consciousness because who will say the pen existed? There's a time where the pen could exist outside of consciousness. Tell me when was that? And how is it independent of it? So they will refute it. That is what is the verse number 45 we did. Let's move forward. He's further driving home even a more sensitive, a very subtle point in the verse number 46. Vyapya vyapakata mithya sarvam atmeti sasanad iti jnate pare tatve bhedasya vasarah kutah. He's asking a question. He's asking a counter question. To the person who believes sansara is real, the Siddhanti, the Advaita Vedanti, is asking a counter question. And what is his question? He's saying, look here, my son. Vyapya vyapakata. What is vyapya and what is vyapaka? You have adhika desa vritti and nyuna desa vritti. Gold is vyapaka, adhika desa vritti. Gold can exist without a nose pin. Vyapya is the nose pin. Then you can have an armlet, you can have earrings, you can have a necklace. There is gold everywhere. Then you have gold biscuits. There is no earring, there is no necklace, there is no armlet, there is no nose pin. That is adhika desa vrittivan, that is vyapaka, this is vyapya. Right? Now, that Ishvara is in all of us. He has created, so he's sarva vyapaka. In order to explain Vedanta, we have to start with this Vyapya Vyapaka Veda Jnana. Because of Upasana, we want to meditate on God. He's created all of us. He's Sarva Vyapi, Sarva Vyapaka, Sarvatma, Vasudevam Sarvamiti. During Upasana Kala, there will be some Veda Buddhi. Then you can do Upasana. Ganesh is my creator. He's my savior. Lord Vishnu is my savior. Jesus is my savior. You have these kinds of thoughts. Vyapya and Vyapaka, not a problem. Then what happens? What is the problem there? Mithya sarvam atmeti sasanat. These particular upasanas you are doing, you do that upasana. There are two ways to do the upasana. One is you do not know that there is no difference between Jiva and Brahman, God and human beings. There is no fundamental difference. You know this, then you are doing upasana. You have a enlightenment approach to it. Bhakti will be less? No. But a blind person, then he has serious bhakti. If you are Vedanti, your bhakti gets weakened. A lot of people walk out of Vedanta classes after some time, thinking that their bhakti is getting weakened and they are becoming very ahankari, and they are committing a lot of errors of judgment out of arrogance of their understanding of a few Vedantic concepts. Yeah, it's very real, it happens. But think about it, that if you accept the insights of the Upanishads and then you are doing upasana seriously, you know there is going to be a moment where you are not going to exist, only God exists. Miraji was thinking about Lord Krishna. And she was becoming Lord Krishna herself because she was realizing that unity, ultimately the bhakta becomes Bhagavan with the ultimate unity. The upasaka and the upasya, this Veda Buddhi also goes. So he's saying what? Vyapya Vyapakata Mithya. Mithya means not completely false. Mithya means not absolutely real. Apparently, yes, real. Absolutely not real. Apparently real. Phenomenally real. Absolutely not real. Mithya. Why? Because you have understood that only everything is Brahman. Are you not Brahman? I met one monk and I was carrying some Ganga water and was saying that we have to give it to the Lord Shiva, and he laughed. He said, do you know actually who brought Ganga here? Who is Ganga, you know? I said, who? No, he's Ganga, is Lord Shiva's wife. She came from Swarga, he carried her here. And then you are taking Ganga water and you're offering to the Shiva Lingam. You are taking a lot of pride that you are a great Bhakta. Ganga is his only. You are carrying some water, giving it to him. Have that meditation, then there will be humility in you. Similarly, the Vedanti, when he sits in meditation on God and he meditates, he has heard about unity, he has done the Sravana, he has studied the Upanishads, then he is doing meditation. This is a meditation technique. We can quickly remove our ahankara, and that upasaka bhava, upasaka abhimana, much easier for us as students of Vedanta to banish out of our consciousness. And then do what? Then we'll start singing Shivoham, Shivoham. I am not caste, I am not father, I am not son, I am not daughter. I am not rich, I am not poor, I am Shivoham, Shivoham. Nirvikara Rupa, Shivoham. It's much easier. That is what he's trying to say here. And he's saying, Iti Gyate Pare Tattve. When you know this Parama Tattva, when that has been known, Vedasya Avasaraha, Vedasya Avasaraha, Sandhi is there. The duality, Avasara, is any elbow room, any scope. Where is any scope for duality? But I am doing Upasana. Yes, you do Upasana. That doesn't create a platform for duality to become real. There is a man and a girl, and there are some people, they are acting on a stage. They are very good friends. Somebody is acting as a villain, somebody is a hero, somebody is this girl who will marry him and all that. In real life, this girl who is acting as the heroine is the wife of the villain. It's very interesting. She's actually the wife of the villain. That's how she has agreed to act in that movie, because the villain will attack this girl and she has no problem, because in real life he is her husband. She has no anxieties about it. They are partners. They are real couple. And there is a third party. That fellow is given the role of a husband and he's romancing this girl, and the villain attacks, and then they get married. The villain dies. All this, she wants her husband to die. They are making money, they're acting. Really, all the story is not real. Same way, all these dualities that we accept are not fundamentally real. There is no scope for it, and so we have been able to do up till verse number 46. And then tomorrow we'll do verse number 47 onwards. We have crossed the time, so we'll stop here. Any question, one or two we can take, otherwise we'll do the Santi mantras. Anyone has any questions, one or two? No, so we can do the Santi mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaaya Purnamevavasate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namah Om Tat Sat.